Let's talk about me, your humble host, #1 Boy Meets World fan. This is me, standing next to that handsome devil Ryder Strong. I'm a second-generation Boy Meets World fan. That means I didn't watch it on its first run, and caught it in syndication on the Disney Channel. That means two big changes. One, I got it all out of order, and two, I only saw the version they presented to me. The Disney Channel censors went in, cut a lot of dialogue, pulled a few controversial episodes, and, weirdest of all to me, changed all of the opening titles in Season 1 to the Season 4 version. That means I only saw Boy Meets World in its original intended form after the DVDs came out. Like a lot of kids, I was attracted to the taboo and wanted to hear the dirty lines, but what really caught my interest was the Season 1 opening. An opening is a big part of a show. It's kind of its thesis statement, pulling people in to watch it. The censors did a fairly good job of editing out lines of dialogue while keeping the show fluid, but there was nothing they could do about the glaring fact that Season 1 has the kids as 11-year-olds, and the Season 4 opening has them all as full-blown teenagers. It was clearly recorded years later. Only first-generation Boy Meets World fans had seen the original, and no one who I talked to could remember what it was like. It was a tantalizing mystery. So when the Boy Meets World Season 1 DVD set came out in 2004, I just had to get it to find out what the opening was like. And then I saw it. Well, I can see why they cut it. There are a lot of flaws with it. Some of them quite small, but they all add up into an annoying segment vastly inferior to future openings. First of all, it's long. It's 56 seconds long, and the Season 4 opening is only 21 seconds. That's a major selling point. Also, though, it's annoying. There's a little instrumental theme that, thank goodness, they ditched after the first season, and it's just annoying as heck. It's trying to come across as cute and kid-friendly, but it's just so annoying. And we have to sit through 56 seconds of it.
Hey, want to hear the most annoying sound in the world?
So what about the visuals? Are they interesting? I guess they would have been in 1993, when green screens were the new fun thing, and when everyone just discovered that computers would do things for TV production, but they're pretty ineffectual now. Let's break it down in more detail than the creators ever intended anyone to do. It starts with the Boy Meets World logo against a green pattern. There are the words Boy Meets and World, with a spinning baseball in the O of Boy and a spinning globe in the O of World. After a moment, a paper airplane flies in behind the text. It's a reasonable representation of the themes of the show: Corey's interest in baseball, the classroom environment, and his mischievousness. Or is that Sean's mischievousness? Until I got the DVD set, I personally never knew that this was what the Boy Meets World logo looked like. It shows up in the opening to Seasons 5, 6, and 7 as a pavement chalk drawing, but I never paid close attention to it as a logo design. I just thought it was a messy chalk drawing that they put the show title on. Season 5, Episode 19, Eric Hollywood, parodies it with the kid gets acquainted with Universe soundstage door, but that's impossible to fully appreciate without understanding what the Boy Meets World logo looks like. When I got the DVD set, though, I finally got to see and understand what the logo looks like. And it works! For Season 1, the logo meets the needs of Season 1 quite well. Season 2 distances itself of the themes of Season 1, thank God. And they appropriately start distancing themselves from the logo then, too. And then the awkward 1990s computer effects start. The globe bounces out of the O in World, fills up the whole screen, spins, and is then propelled away from the camera like a thrown baseball as Corey swings a bat to knock it out of the shot. When I first saw this, I thought the bat was CGI because it just looks so fake, but I think it's actually very badly captured. I think they erased some of it when they replaced the green screen with a white patterned background. This is especially visible on the right side of the screen, where the tip of the bat gets cut off. And I guess it absorbed light or something because it seems to turn white as he swings. All the while, he just has this cheesy grin, unrealistic to a kid actually playing baseball, and more like what they think will evoke parents' nostalgia to when they played baseball in their own childhoods. As the globe goes in front of the camera, there's a very awkward cut to a different shot of Corey standing still as fake CGI stuff flies around him. While swiping things in front of the camera is a very standard transition in film production, it's not executed well here at all. We know Corey had a bat in his hands. There is no bat lying around, and there wasn't time for him to realistically put the bat someplace else, so there is no bridge between the two shots. They might as well have had no transition, and in a sense they don't. The bottom of his shirt is still visible under the globe, so it's technically a jump cut. The next shot of Corey is just a kid smiling awkwardly. It's like they wanted to sell this idea of a cute kid, so they have Corey slowly, cutely smiling like he's a kindergartner on his first day, trying to look appealing to an adult. It's really out of character for Corey. They might as well have put Morgan there in his place. That's what Morgan does as a character, look cute for the adults. And as he's looking cute, there's all this weird stuff flying around. First, there's the title that says Ben Savage on a banner being pulled behind a paper airplane. Why would a paper airplane have a banner? Have you ever seen a paper airplane drag a banner? I sure haven't. I wouldn't think it would be possible. The paper airplanes only fly because they're very light, and a banner would be heavy and produce drag. I did a Google search just to see if people were actually doing something like that somewhere, anywhere in the world, and I got nothing. It's just a bizarre, impossible image. Why couldn't the paper airplane be a radio-controlled toy instead? Sure, we don't see one in the show, but I think it fits the theme of Corey better than a lot of this weird stuff seen in the opening. And then the banner itself looks off. It's a transparent white strip with blue lettering on top of it. It comes in with a wavy effect that stretches out the letters along the curves, which would make sense if the letters were a part of the banner itself, except they're not. They're beveled, giving them a hard look, like they're made out of metal or painted wood. That's fine for most of these titles because the objects behind them are just used to create contrast as thematic backgrounds. However, for Ben Savage, they went to lengths to portray the letters as printed on the banner, subject to the same bends as the white part. You might think, well, this time they decided to make the text a part of the object. Even though it looks hard and on top of the banner, we should accept that it's printed on the banner. And you would be wrong. The descender of the G in Savage clearly descends below the banner. That look only makes sense if the actor's name is a hard object sitting on top of the banner. The visual effects are contradictory. Even if you don't notice it consciously, it gives the title a surreal look. And that descender just looks wrong. You should never have a descender drop below the confines of the space. Imagine if that's a physical sign. You would not have a G hanging down into the air. The bottom of the banner shouldn't be mistaken for the baseline, on which normal letters sit and which descenders drop below. The bottom of the banner should be the descent, where the descenders sit. Bizarrely, the letters aren't even resting on the bottom of the banner. There is more space between the bottom of the letters and the bottom of the banner than between the top of the capital letters and the top of the banner. Whoever made this thing did not give a crap about it. Behind him, a bicycle passes from the right side of the screen to the left side of the screen. I guess this could be a reference to the bicycle that Corey bets against Feeney's paycheck cut in Season 1, Episode 8, Teacher's Bet, but we don't see that bicycle. They talk about it, but it's always off-screen. It's kind of weird to feature something in the opening that we don't actually see in the show. Get used to that. I doubt many people looked at it and recognized it as that thing we didn't see in Teacher's Bet. If they were going to feature an object relevant to an episode, why not something we actually see, like the silver gloves in Season 1, Episode 19, Kid Gloves? At the same time, a baseball mitt flies around. It's emphasized several times throughout the season that Corey likes baseball, so it's relevant to have a baseball theme. The mitt is kind of generic, though. And generic baseball stuff like this is seen all throughout the opening. Why not the Philadelphia Phillies hat that we see him wear in multiple episodes? Well, there's a reason for it, but not a very good one. It has to do with the third object flying around in the shot, by far the weirdest one. A box of French fries comes out of his shirt. They don't even try to make that look realistic. It's just the most bizarre thing. Why French fries? Is it just because he likes junk food? I don't think he really eats fries that much. We see him talk about pizza and sugary cereal more than anything. If they wanted a food relevant to Boy Meets World, I'd go for that chicken he steals from Feeney in Season 1, Episode 14, The B-Team of Life. I don't think there's a good reason for the fries, though. I think the only reason they decided to make fries show up from under his shirt is because they wanted to show off their fancy new computer effects, and could only think of fries to do what they wanted to do. In the middle of the shot, 3 fries sway in the box, like they're being rocked by the flight path of the fry box, and they fall out of the box and get caught by the mitt. That is the only reason they put random flying french fries into a shot, to show off effects. And the main reason they went for a mitt is to support the french fry thing. That is stupid. The french fries add nothing to the opening. They just make the shot busier. And stuff goes by so quickly I'm sure most people never even notice the fancy fry effect. The shot is annoyingly cluttered and surreal. The transition to the next shot is also weird. The mitt flies at the camera, and Corey dodges, and in the movement, Corey peels off like he's a sticker. It's like he's a 2D cartoon character. And the 2D Corey gets peeled backwards, so we see a reverse image of Corey dodging the mitt while keeping that out-of-character cutesy smile on his face. I'm sure they just stuck in that effect because they wanted to show off all their new computer effects, and the result was just bizarre. It's totally unnecessary and ended up like a horror show. As peeled Corey falls away, another shot of Corey rises up and wobbles like he was on an elevator that roughly thrust him up and took him a moment to stabilize. Yeah, the two are on screen at the same time. Again, it's showing off effects in weird ways. This Corey has the same sort of cutesy smile, and now he's looking around at the school-related set of CGI objects, like Hermione Granger just made them float around the classroom. Remember, it's Leviosa, not Leviosa. There's a really fake-looking drafting compass that never shows up anytime in the show. A fake-looking ruler that technically could be said to be one of the ones that Feeny hands out at Halloween in place of candy in Season 1, Episode 6, Boys to Mensa. And a dictionary called Boys World Dictionary. I have to admit that the Boys World Dictionary is a clever element, both in name and how it's used to introduce Feeny. The book opens up to the entry on teacher, and there's a picture of Mr. Feeny, who is apparently such an iconic teacher that he shows up in the dictionary. The picture fills up the screen, and then Feeny turns around to address his class. Given that this came out around the same time as Myst, which features books that have video clips in them that serve as magical portals to alien planets, I have to wonder if people made jokes about the Boys World Dictionary being a linking book. Or maybe I'm the only one that nerdy. The opening has a bunch of little clips of the cast that were made specifically for the opening. Essentially, the actors try to embody the characters in the most appealing ways to the presumed audience of, I'm guessing, critical moms. Moms who are trying to figure out if this show is good for their kids to watch. Ben Savage sells Corey as the cute little kid, and now William Daniels sells Feeny as the grouchy but ultimately fun teacher. The title here has the blue lettering, clearly representing a hard object, present right away in the shot. After half a second, a pencil rolls upward and serves as the background for the title. This visual metaphor is a lot more coherent than the Ben Savage title. The pencil still doesn't cover the title completely. It should be a bit bigger. The pencil then erases Feeny's head, the background falls away, and Corey mockingly pretends to be Feeny by standing behind Feeny's body like it's one of those carnival displays. This is the most in character that Corey gets in the opening. It more or less captures his subversive spirit, though a random rollerblade soon punishes him for it. I guess at one point they intended for him to play street hockey. There's a hockey stick that has Corey's name on it, like this is a big Corey thing. Aside from an offhand comment, that's really just a setup for a gay joke, I don't think street hockey ever really shows up in the show. He just plays baseball and basketball, right? The rollerblade kicks him in the head, giving him a reason to run to Mom. A lot of hearts float by, and then we get Amy's introduction. Corey is dressed for street hockey like he never is in the show, and Amy puts a band-aid on his head. Corey runs off, and Amy smiles at him for far longer than is natural. Betsy Randall sells Amy as a doting, nurturing mom in a way that I don't think she's ever portrayed as on the show, where she's always stressed and tired because she has a lot of work to do, as is realistic for a housewife, mother of 3 kids, and full-time real estate agent. As Corey would put it, this representation of Amy is
too perfect.
Too TV.
I don't even think she wears her hair like that in the show. It's surreal. At least they finally got the title centered inside the background, a band-aid, but they had to force a special effect in there. So the title bends with a band-aid like it's a part of the fabric, despite clearly being styled as a hard object resting on top. The Amy scene flies away because they had to force a special effect in there, and Corey pulls off his band-aid. There must be a portal to a pocket dimension in his skull, though, because a bunch of stuff starts flying out of the wound. This time it's about Eric, so the objects are vehicle-related. Finally, things are relevant to an actual episode in the show, namely Season 1, Episode 18, It's a Wonderful Night. There are keys and a car that is presumably a stand-in for the car that Alan lets him borrow in It's a Wonderful Night, even though it's doubtful that Alan would drive a convertible. There's also an old red car that looks like the toy that Doc uses in Back to the Future to demonstrate the clock tower plan. Why would Eric have a car from the 1950s? Why would he be looking at a car from the 1950s? It's all so confusing. And there's this motorcycle in the background. Unless that belongs to Tony with a Y, I'm guessing it has nothing to do with the show. Will Friedle sells Eric with the goofiest expression. Not even to convey that Eric is goofy, it's just weird for an actor to sell his character with. Like the director couldn't figure out what to say, and Will Friedle just decided to goof off. He starts out with his mouth held in a weird half-smile that kind of makes him look like Johnny Depp as Willy Wonka. And then he makes this delighted grin while holding his eyes open so wide that it's the most insincere smile ever. And then he just turns a page of the magazine without looking down at it. It's just so fake! What the heck? The title for Will Friedle is the best in the opening. The visual metaphor is both plausible and consistent. The car drives by, the license plate falls off, and the plate spins around and becomes the title. The beveled blue lettering is consistent with what we expect from license plates, so it works much better than the hard stuff on something soft metaphor as we see with Ben Savage and Betsy Randall titles. Then there's a series of goofy clips from the episodes. This works much better than manufacturing introduction clips. It gives us an actual taste of how goofy Boy Meets World can be, and it puts its best foot forward. Unfortunately, it doesn't last, and we go back to manufactured introductions and forced special effects. The transition is having a clip be smashed by a baseball like it's going through a window. It feels like another excuse to stick an effect in there, but at least it's somewhat relevant to the show insofar as Corey liking baseball, and it's tied into the logo. The next bit introduces Sean, and it uses the theme of paper airplanes because Sean goofs off in class, and paper airplanes are a convenient visual metaphor for that concept. Though technically a comparison between Corey's paper airplane and Minkus's paper model in Boys to Mensa are more iconic uses of the symbol, I can understand handing it to Sean when Corey already has the baseball theme in the opening. I would probably prefer the cherry bomb from Season 1, Episode 17, The Fugitive, as that's more iconic for the character, but I could see how the critical moms wouldn't like that, and the paper airplane theme works just fine. However, there are still problems with the theme. Like, why is the background made from dancing purple and violet paper airplanes? Unless they're made from tissue paper, too light to work for paper airplanes, or from construction paper, too heavy to work with paper airplanes, you're not going to be making them in purple and violet. It might make some sense if Sean dressed in purple like the Joker, but he doesn't. So it's just one more bizarre design choice. And then there's a shot of Corey looking scared and confused as the more traditionally colored paper airplane flies through his head. It actually goes through one ear and out the other like he's a cartoon character. Maybe if this was a more cartoony show, that could work, but it just feels bizarre and disturbing. Oh, and nice going not lining up the bottom of Corey's torso with the bottom of the screen. You see that purple line going back and forth? That's the paper airplane behind him. The foreground paper airplane unfolds and gives us a shot of Sean throwing a similar paper airplane. I assume we are to infer that he is behind the paper airplane in the logo. Out of all of the actors, it is probably Ryder Strong who does the best character intro. He very nicely captures Sean's smug confidence and self-assured mischievousness. His title comes in rolling in on a skateboard, and it works in a manner similar to the license plate, where hard stuff is effective on hard stuff. The lettering is only distorted in the way that the board itself is distorted, in such a way as to emphasize its speed. It feels more like a real object this way. The top of the board works well as a baseline, with the G descender dropping down along the side of the board, and its bottom functioning as the descent. That works much better than the Ben Savage descender just hanging off of the banner. The tops of the Ryder Strong letters extend beyond the top of the board, but this time it works with the metaphor of the letters sitting on top of the skateboard. There's an effective transition where the skateboard zooms away and leaves a cloud of dust in its wake. Corey fans the air and then ducks as a computer flies in to introduce Minkus. This is actually a clever transition. The shot of Corey fanning the air and the shot of Corey ducking are two different shots separated by a jump cut, but you never notice the cut because of a visual effect put on Corey's body where he flickers like there's a glitch in the transmission. It all runs together smoothly. The computer flies in so quickly that it's impossible to see what is written on it when watching the show normally, but if you have the DVD, you can go in frame by frame, and you can see the name Jacobs on it, as in Michael Jacobs, co-creator of Boy Meets World. That's a nice touch, similar to the name of the Boys World Dictionary. I assume they designed the computer model with the idea that people would be able to read it, but then decided later on to have it fly in quickly, and the detail was lost as a result. Now that the DVDs are out though, you can go in frame by frame and can find their Easter egg. The Minkus introduction works fairly effectively, but is still a little weird. At this point, the music starts being very orderly and deliberate, which fits the tone of the Minkus character very well. In the clip, he addresses an unseen Mr. Feeney with enthusiasm. It almost works, but if you look at his face instead of the title, you can tell that his eyes are closed for the whole shot. Now that doesn't make any sense. I imagine that this was some kind of practice shot that they never intended to use, or at least that Lee Norris didn't realize they would use it. It's just another bit of weirdness. The title uses the computer metaphor with a pseudo-Macintosh text window that displays the name Lee Norris. It's a cute idea, but not well executed. Like a lot of fake computer interfaces in the 90s, this was designed by someone who only had a vague idea of how computer interfaces work. It doesn't feel like a real interface, only a crappy imitation of Macintosh. I used a lot of variant cursors as a kid, so the big red arrow isn't a problem, but what it does makes no sense. Why would clicking Project make text appear on an open text window? Why not just type it out? And they didn't center the text correctly. It's only centered based on the right side of the window, not the right side of the text box. I'm sure I wasn't the only computer geek who had a problem with this title. The Minkus clip goes away, and we're left with Corey thinking about Morgan. There's a pink faux tea set behind him, and this is the first set of objects to make perfect sense for the character. There's a thought bubble containing a clip of Morgan, and this is used to make the transition. I don't have anything wrong with it in theory, but Corey's actions are weird. He has this cheesy grin and raises his eyebrows at the thought bubble. Why is he reacting to his own thought bubble? Shouldn't he just be thinking? And the director probably just told Lily Nixay that she looks cute because she just smiles and looks cute. It's fine for the character. I wish Morgan was more developed than a little girl acting cute, but that's really all she is. The title is super cutesy, with a flower background, and it's one of the few titles to have been designed competently. Morgan disappears into a teacup, which flies away, presumably heading up into outer space to confuse agnostics. And then there's a baseball theme with Corey throwing a baseball off screen to be caught by Alan. Even though the transition is cheesy, as is the baseball theme, it is fairly effective. The title appears in the wake of a lawnmower, which, even though we don't see Alan use, fits Alan's character very well, and the title is nicely legible in front of the grass. It achieves the desirable level of effectiveness in that it doesn't stand out. Alan tosses the ball back to Corey, but the cut turns it back into a globe. He throws the globe up into the Created By sign, which mirrors the logo. There's a baseball spinning in the O in Jacobs, and the globe spins in the P of April. To give credit where it's due, this last set of 4 shots is fairly effective. Overall, though, the opening does not hold up. I don't want to just nitpick here, but there are so many problems with this opening and they just all build up. It ends up weird, boring, and just plain annoying. Feels more like they cared about projecting the idea of family-friendly entertainment than they did about actually designing a good product. The worst part is the music. It really gets on my nerves. I want to make it vanish with the power of my mind. And of course, they had to fill the DVD menus with it. Literally, anytime you change menus, that annoying music starts all over again. It makes me just not want to use the DVD, which isn't exactly the goal of marketing. When the DVD came out, a lot of critics who never heard of Boy Meets World decided to check it out, and most of them had bad things to say about it and had some specific hate for the annoying music. Now, I don't particularly like Season 1, and I do consider it to be the weakest of the 7 seasons, but it isn't as bad as some of the critics made it out to be. I have to think that the annoying music is responsible for that bad impression, at least to some extent. There are less annoying sections of the soundtrack they could have used for the menus, or they could have left them silent. Recreating the opening was a bad idea. The Season 1 opening itself was a bad idea. They should have made it much shorter. Show the title, show the actors, created by, then you're done. Leave out the crappy CGI and especially the music. That music will haunt my nightmares. In Season 2, they just have a cartoon Cory acting cool, but getting run over by a globe, perfectly encapsulating the sentiment of Season 2, where he thinks he's cool and on top of things, and then gets in trouble when he finds out that the world is more complicated. And it's all about 7 seconds long. Clearly someone at ABC was annoyed by the Season 1 opening too, and got a better designer. I just wish that they worked on the Season 1 opening as well. The Season 3 opening follows the example of the Season 2 opening, and keeps it short and sweet in 11 seconds, with some stylized shots of Cory, Shawn, and Eric hanging out. Season 4 goes back to the idea of a longer intro to show off the cast, but it still keeps things contained to a tight 21 seconds, and showcases the cast as part of a quick story about the teenagers hanging out together. The Season 5 opening then captures the general spirit of teens hanging out in the season, set against a corny but fun song repeating the title. And this is about 23 seconds long. The long, annoying, surreal, and cluttered Season 1 opening is a good lesson in what not to do when designing a TV show opening.